Do you love your body vessel or hate it? Can you embody the spirit of yourself and universal love? Can you surrender to your body's wisdom to help you to always be in the right place at the right time, having that serendipity? These are all pressures and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for September 20th to 26th, 2025 bring. Hello there, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast. I'm Margo Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. All right, well, let's dive right into this cycle. It all starts on September 20th at 5:24 p.m., going until September 26th at 11:15 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, that's starting September 20th at 11:24 p.m., going until September 26th at 5:15 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We are moving into a pair of the love gates in the G center, the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. Every time we have a solstice or an equinox, we have two of the love gates in the Sun-Earth position. So I think that's quite nice to have these solar markers that remind us to connect with aspects of love. We have the Sun moving into gate 46, the trait of determination of the self, of pushing upward, and of love of the body vessel. Gate 46 is part of the experiential way, going through cycles of experiences to reflect and learn. Its keynote says, good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. The effort and dedication is to being persistent in moving through the experiential process. Even though the experiential circuitry is ultimately reflecting on experiences to gain the wisdom so that we don't have to repeat mistakes and can evolve, this particular trait is quite existential. Be here now, be in your body, in your life, in your experience of life, without expectations. Your life is lived through your body, and it has a built-in ability to guide you to be at the right place at the right time. But it requires surrender of the mind to where it thinks you should be. And this is really the potential opportunity that this frequency brings, to love your body vessel, to allow it to guide you, and to surrender to that through your strategy and authority, to come into a deeper trust of the wisdom of your body. When you let your body guide you through your strategy and authority, your body and yourself will be in the right place at the right time in the body. And that is serendipity. The body requires your determined caring, love of the vessel, feeding it, nurturing it. And this is a frequency that could help you do that. At the same time, the polarity can be there, the or not. There can be the hate of the body, allowing the mind to rule, and then being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You may hear people or yourself, if you're in that place, getting down on their body, complaining about unmet expectations or things never lining up in that serendipitous way. Whatever experience you're in, these frequencies are about really being in it for the sake of itself. Then the body can do its thing and be productive. And when the experience ends, it can be effective in that reflection process. It's really a great cycle to listen to your body and attune to what it needs. Gate 46 is being grounded in the Earth's position, gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. Now, we have had Neptune and Saturn for quite some time now sitting in this gate 25. So it's one that has been with us for a bit. Neptune Activating gate 25 is really important. Before it moved into this gate on February 10th, the exaltation of line 1 was actually not present in the world, simply because it takes more than a lifetime for Neptune to move through every gate. It's Neptune that activates the exaltation of line 1, and line 1 provides the fundamental theme for any gate, any trait. For gate 25, that line 1 exaltation is called selflessness, and it's about motiveless action. But until February 10th, we only had the detriment in the world, which says a tendency to publicize one's selflessness, the insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. Well, if you're publicizing your selfless acts, they're no longer without motivation. This is the philanthropist that lets you know they're a philanthropist. And we are all so highly conditioned that there has to be a motive and a motivation for every action. We're in the G center, the center associated again with love, direction, and identity, and a gate that's rooted in selflessness. This insecurity is motivating in itself. Who am I? Who is myself? Why am I here? In the detriment, there's that drive to identify as something and with something. So this is a great time to be looking at the groups, for example, that you may be involved with and contemplate whether you're gaining a sense of identity through that. I think it's pretty cool that in our lifetime, there's now this potential to experience the exaltation, which is the universalization of activity, psychic attunement that it is its own reward, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges. This is a gate that points to the ego center, the heart center, that motor that generates willpower. Its electromagnetic is gate 51, the trait of shock, a very powerful ego gate. The heart of the warrior is here. I have the power. It's meeting gate 25 here, the spirit of the warrior that simply says power exists. It's part of the individual circuitry, which is about bringing mutation, bringing something new through, and a pulse of knowing, and that can be very empowering. With this gate 25 frequency, we are likely to meet the shocks of gate 51. Can you adapt to these shocks, or will you withdraw? It's part of the channel of initiation, which can be deeply competitive with others, but in its highest form, it's being competitive with yourself in a way, stretching yourself into the unknowns of your own potentials. And gate 25 can support you in both maintaining your innocence, the wonder and the awe that the power is there, and also in delving into root motives for your actions. So in this way, this trait can bring you more deeply into yourself. It's part of the centering circuit that's about being centered in yourself, which means accepting yourself and maintaining innocence, maintaining your unique self, no matter what the circumstances are going on around you. The perfection of action through an uncontrived and spontaneous nature. We all go through our trials in life, and this frequency is about maintaining innocence, not to be confused with naivete through those trials. In that way, they can become initiations that move you more deeply into yourself and out of the conditioning of society. The potential opportunities this brings then is to allow those trials to stretch you and to show you your capabilities. This is the spirit of yourself, the spirit of the warrior, not getting caught up in the ego, maintaining innocence even in a competitive atmosphere. And there's a potential for becoming more deeply centered within yourself as you move through the trials and challenges of life. They help you to know yourself more deeply. It's also the frequency of universal love, loving all things equally, whether plant, animal, mineral, person, whatever that might be. So it can seem to another person to be a cool kind of love because it doesn't put another human above anything else. It's all universal. It helps us to bring compassion to all beings. In the polarity, this frequency could bring lack of compassion for other beings. And rather than becoming more centered in one's unique individuality, simply moving from being not self-conditioned by one person or group to another, instead of being simply selfless in the now, needing to be recognized for that selflessness. So the ego being involved and not looking at what's driving your actions. When we look at the Sun-Earth positions together, they can support you in being your unique self and accepting yourself as you are. Bringing that innocence to be in the experience, for whatever it brings. You might get to the root of why you might not be accepting yourself. Or it could simply bring competitiveness out of ego motivations in a way that punishes the body. Working on the body could also come out of this, but not as an experience of awakening those untapped potentials within and really listening to what your unique body needs are, but to meet some societal standard or out of competition with another. So again, both sides can be playing out here. Let's move on to the channels now. When the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So we can really learn from them. And it creates a strong field because everybody in the world is carrying it. We have two channels that are being created by the planetary transits this cycle. They're both being created by the transit of the moon. So they're just little tasters. The moon only stays in a gate for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. So it's not really a super long time. So the effect of it is very muted. The first begins September 21st at 1:24 a.m., going until 12:17 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming September 21st at 7:24 a.m., going until 6:17 p.m. We have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction, with the moon moving into gate 6, the trait of conflict and friction in the emotional solar plexus center, connecting with Venus position, gate 59, the trait of sexuality in the sacral center. We saw this channel activation for a few days in the last cycle. So I gave more details about it then. Here I'll just give a more brief overview. This is part of the tribal circuitry that has a theme of mutual support. This channel brings a pressure to reproduce, literally and metaphorically. It creates a frequency that's very penetrating and can open others to intimacy or close them. Can open you to intimacy or close that. It can be uncomfortable, the penetrating nature of this frequency. So something to watch for there. There's also an opportunity for creative fertility. There's creativity built into this channel. The polarity of infertility and creative infertility could be here as well. The other channel that we have, it's coming in on September 22nd at 9:22 p.m., going until September 23rd at 8:32 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming in September 23rd at 3:22 a.m., going until 2:32 p.m. We have the channel of the brainwave, a design of awareness. This is connecting gate 57, the trait of intuitive insight in the splenic center, to gate 20, the trait of the now in the throat center. It's a place where the intuitive insights that come through an acoustic knowing in the now in gate 57 have access to the throat to be expressed through gate 20. That expression can flow through here of what you know now. You may get a sense through an acoustic knowing of truths and lies, of what's safe and what's not safe, what's healthy for you and what's not, and be able to clearly articulate that. However, there can also be this blurting out of one's knowings without being invited, in which case it's likely to be to the wrong people at the wrong time and go unheard, or it's an individual channel, so it may just be considered weird. Not going to listen to that. So again, always strategy and authority for the timing. This brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind may start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. And then when that transit finally moves on, wow, to the not self mind, that can be very confusing. The big changes this cycle are that we have Jupiter changing lines and Saturn is going to change gates. Last cycle, we had Jupiter moving into gate 62, the trait of detail. This is part of the logic circuitry that wants to find those patterns to carry us into the future safely and reliably. Its keynote says caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. The limitation being the pattern itself. It takes caution, patience, and detail to really figure out what the correct pattern, the correct formula is. So it's an expression of the mental logic process, which is all about coming up with its opinions, its theories, and expressing those out with all the facts and details. It's the voice of I think, or I don't think so. I don't think, whatever it might be. It's an expression that's reasonable or unreasonable. You can articulate and follow the reasoning or not. It's also the trait of naming things. So if you have to come up with a name for something, this could actually be a really great time while this activation is present. Having names for things really gives us a foundation for sharing information. It's the root of language and communicating with each other. A name is expressing a pattern. A tree has these qualities and characteristics, this pattern that we call a tree. Now we can all talk about a tree. As we start the cycle, it's in line 1 called routine. There's a lot of imagination involved in the mental logic process because it's all theory. You have to go over and over your theory again in your head. Okay, if this happens, I think this is the formula, it's going to lead to this. Okay, now, and then what? And then what? And then what? And then, okay, now what about in a different context? So there's this routine aspect of going over something again and again and again to mentally test it out before you actually share it. That way you've got the details to support your theory and others will be able to follow it. Hopefully, with the details, someone can go then and test it, do the experiment in the real world to see if it really works. So it also minimizes when you have all the details in place being challenged. Line 1 is always about investigation. And here it's investigation through fantasy and using one's imagination. That's what it brings. Now, the detriment says rebellion and its enormous waste of energy, the need for expression which ignores the details. Predictably, this is likely to be challenged by others. September 24th, Jupiter is going to move into line 2 called restraint. Now, line 2s are not about investigating. This is the hermit and the natural. Line 2s are always projecting out the trait, but whether they're actually bringing that or doing that may not be true. So the second line is going to bring this frequency that could have those of us that it impacts projecting out that we're doing detail work. Well, maybe, but maybe not. The exaltation says the innate restrictiveness and discipline to comply with and exalt restraint. The discipline necessary for detail work. Yes, the discipline is there, but not all the time, even though the projection's always there. So the detriment says the intellect stymied by severe restraints tends to anxiety and restlessness. The expression of anxiety and restlessness when faced with detail work. Just because there's going to be this projection out that you're doing detail work, it doesn't mean that you know what details to go into. That can create a lot of anxiety. And if you get asked what you're working on because it looks like you're focused on something, but you're really not, again, it can lead to anxiety and restlessness. Now, Jupiter brings a quality of expansiveness, expansion to this trait. This is a throat gate. And most people are not being patient, waiting for the details to come together before they express them out. So there's going to be lots of talking, expressing out, so-called facts that might not be true at all. There could be challenges to what is expressed. Jupiter also brings our laws, so a deeper tendency to want the facts and not accepting anything if the facts and details aren't there could be present. It's a quality that could expand your eye for detail. At the same time, you could spend a lot of energy on details that are not actually relevant to what you should be putting your energy into according to your own strategy and authority. This activation can also bring people providing all sorts of unnecessary detail and expression that hasn't been asked for and really boring people. So you may experience that yourself. You might be the one going into the detail or not. And a reminder that just because someone speaks well to the facts doesn't mean that they're right. The actual testing to see if it really works still has to be done. Once we move into line 2, we're going to see that restlessness and anxiety of what to focus on and misunderstandings where you may think someone's working on details and they're not doing that at all. Or they think you're working on details and that's not what you're doing. Saturn and Neptune both sitting in that gate 25 position, the trait of the spirit of the self, innocence, universal love, or the polarity. We've already talked about the Earth being there. So until the 24th, when Saturn changes gates, we have very, very strong gate 25 pressure. Be here now in the unknown of your own potentials and stretch yourself. Be centered within yourself, as we talked about earlier. Now, in the collective, because most people are operating in the not self, and gate 25 being pointed at the gate of shock, with these 3 activations of gate 25, I think there's, a higher potential that there's going to be some very shocking things that could come in, and this heightened ego competitiveness coming out. Following your own strategy and authority is your way to navigate those. At the personal level, though, remember that there can be good shocks. And for this new level of selflessness to be expressed that we talked about. So there's a potential there with that as well. Saturn, with its limitations and consequences, starts this cycle in gate 25, line 1, called selflessness. When we were just talking about motiveless action. On September 24th, it's going to retrograde back to the gate of crisis, gate 36 in the solar plexus emotional center. This was the Earth's position in our last cycle. It's part of that abstract experiential circuitry where the crisis is not having the experience. This is really where the pressure is to turn what you've yearned for into reality by entering into the experience and seeing it through to the end. It's going to be in line 6 called justice, which has a developmental theme, something that we learn over time that says the inevitable survival of right. In other words, you correctly enter into an experience for pure feeling, you will get to the other side. The thing about the 6th line is that it always wants to know something greater will come out of it. Here it brings this wanting to know that the experience and the change will lead to something greater, that it will really be of value. The exaltation for this trait says the knowledge and attendant faith that the powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. The correctness of crisis when it arises out of pure feelings. The darkness here is ignorance. Madness reigns as long as there is ignorance, that not having of the experience. When entering into it from true and pure feelings, yes, this is the correct experience to enter into. There is the potential for something transcendent that can come out of it. The detriment says a profound sorrow and cynicism that is not diminished by understanding that darkness is self-annihilating. The sorrow or cynicism that comes with seeing that despite the correctness of feelings, there's always crisis. So this is a detriment that can be depressive. What if the expectation is never fulfilled? What am I doing on this hamster wheel of life? There's no point. This line in detriment is the one that can be expressing the world's coming to an end. So in our not-self worlds, we may see this play out. Saturn does tend to be a more serious type of energy. So the consequences may be more severe when we can't let go of expectation and enter into things correctly. Now, at the same time, Saturn can help bring discipline to the process of going through an experience, and discipline to only entering those experiences that come out of your strategy and authority, rather than just the pressure of this frequency being there. Neptune remains in gate 25. It's in line 3 called sensibility, which has a developmental theme that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. Doesn't always work out. This can bring the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock, but there could also be the potential loss of spirit through failure and shock. Okay, North Node of the Moon, still sitting in gate 22, the individual trait of grace or disgrace, attentive listening or not, and openness or closedness to social interaction. It's in line 2 called Charm School. It's bringing an environment where we may see this real attentiveness to each other and openness to socializing. Although the substance of the talk itself will tend to be more superficial, but still it can open up opportunities to meet new people, or it can be this real closing off to interaction. Gate 47, the collective abstract trait of realization and oppression in the Ajna center, is in line 2 called ambition. That brings an environment of keeping busy in the present so that we don't have to deal with trying to make sense of the past. The question is what you're being busy with of value? Again, strategy and authority need to guide you. Uranus, with its unusualness, its rebellion, its revolutionary nature, sitting in gate 20, the trait of the now. It's in the throat center, and it's probably the most existential gate in the body graph. And it has the voice of I am now. It's still in line 2, called the dogmatist, that brings a quality of expressing a narrow perspective and not necessarily being able to see everything that's there in the now. With that dogmatism, there can be a real resistance to those who bring points of view outside of that narrow perspective and avoiding them in favor of those who agree. It can also enhance following specialized areas where you want that narrow perspective. However, if there's a lack of wisdom of experience, it can be very much, I know what's best for you, that kind of quality to it. Yeah, well, maybe not. Pluto brings that inner truth and rules the larger cosmic cycles. It's in gate 60, the individual trait of limitation and acceptance, also in the root center. It's in line 6 called rigidity. It brings a frequency that can help you to accept limitations that you come up against and not try to push through them until you see that mutation, real change can happen. Or you could feel real agitation, even feeling depressed in being limited. You know you have to be restrained. That's part of the frequency. You can't push through the limitation, but you really don't like it. So we're seeing a couple of things here, right, that are more depressive in the long-term transits that are coming here once Saturn moves back into that gate of crisis in line 6. So in the detriments, again, it's something we may see play out. Overall, we still have strong individuality in the transit field, being present and open to the unknown within yourself and within life, and not being drawn into the ego competitiveness or expectations of the mind. I don't usually talk about the inner planets, but I am keeping an eye on Mars. Mars can be very hasty and immature, and it's going to be in detriment as it moves through lines 4 and lines 5 in its transit. So line 4 is called corruption, and that's going to come in the night of the 20th until early on the 22nd. And then it'll be in detriment again in line 5 after that until the afternoon of the 23rd. Now, those are Mountain Daylight Time. And line 5 in detriment says, a perverse reaction to rebel against the methodology of one's very success. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you, you can learn from it, but whether there's actually anything for you to do about it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run you or puppet you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margogfraser.com/human-design. All right, so time for some body love and universal love. A great time for contemplating what pulls you out of feeling centered and to contemplate what your body is asking for. What does it need to nourish it? And it's a great time for fostering deeper connection with yourself that can help you transcend any of those shocks that come in. All right, have a great cycle, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.